Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my Game Week 8 League 1 review. If you do want to enjoy today's video, please make sure to drop a like on there for me and subscribe to the channel as well. If you are new, can we try and hit 140 likes on today's video? And don't forget to get your thoughts down in the comment section down below on how your team got on over the weekend. Again, apologies for this not coming out yesterday, but we'll waste no further time and get straight into it. We'll kick things off with AFC Wimbledon picking up a brilliant victory at home to Rotherham United. The Millers took the lead 7 minutes before half-time, and it seemed a little bit all too easy really for Rotherham, considering how well drilled defensively that Wimbledon are. There was a lot of gaps and spaces really, and it was nicely worked by Rotherham down the right-hand side. Eventually, the ball falls to Jordan Hugill in the box, who finishes at Nathan Bishop's near post. A very well taken goal from a man who I don't think will score many goals come the end of the campaign. Just 5 minutes into the second half though, the Wombles would equalise with a great strike from the outside of the penalty area from Jake Reeves, and then just 15 minutes or so later, Wimbledon would be awarded a penalty. I actually think there's 2 fouls, but I'm pretty sure it is given for Joe Rafferty basically just dragging down Ryan Johnson inside the penalty area. Matty Stevens then finds the top corner with a very well taken penalty. I know he's had a couple of penalties so far this season, but even still, I think he's on 5, maybe 6 league goals so far this campaign. He's had a great start and massively stepped up to life in League One. These are the type of games, with all due respect to Rotherham, that Wimbledon do need to be winning at home to a potential relegation rival if they want to be successful. I know Wimbledon have had a great start to the campaign and they're going to be very strong, very hard to beat at home. Looking at the stats again, the opposition have had more possession, but they're dominating pretty much every other statistic. And this is a game where they didn't have Marcus Brown through suspension, they didn't have Joe Lewis as well through suspension, and they've still come out and away from the game with a very, very good win for them. Again though, I look at the Rotherham squad and just a severe lack of quality in that side. I really do think they are going to struggle this season. In terms of the league table then, Wimbledon up to 11th at this moment in time, scored 10 and conceded 10. They've won 4 and lost 4 of their opening 8. They are very good, and obviously the previous 3 games before this, including an AFL Trophy game against Stevenage, they conceded I think 5 goals in the not 5 goals, sorry, 11 goals in those 3 games, so to only concede the 1 in this one. And in terms of Rotherham, just 2 wins for them so far this campaign, only outside the relegation zone by 2 points at this moment in time. Just scored 6 goals as well so far this season. I think that is going to be their biggest problem for Rotherham. They won't score enough goals this season, and I do think they will go on and get relegated. Losing away at Wimbledon isn't the end of the world when you're picking up the odd point here or there, but they're not really doing that in all honesty. And I do think Rotherham will struggle come the end of the campaign, but a great start to the season for Wimbledon and another great 3 points for them. Barnsley FC continued their great start to the season with a 3-2 victory at home to Reading, who continued their poor start to the campaign. The scoring was opened by the hosts with less than 10 minutes gone on the clock. Corner comes in from Caelan Vickers, and it's so easy for Barnsley. Josh Earl with practically a free header into the back of the net. He's only 5 or 6 yards out. He's absolutely awful defending from Reading, but the Royals would pull a goal back with 10 minutes to go until the half-time mark. Ball played over the top by Lewis Wing, and Murphy Cooper, the Barnsley keeper, comes steaming out, completely misses the ball. Jack Marriott then, it's not an easy finish, but he is able to find the back of the net. A very well taken goal from him, to be fair. But 10 minutes into the second half, Barnsley would restore their lead. Some nice play, some nice build-up play really. Ball is eventually played over the top to Nathaniel Ogbette. He crosses first time to Davis Keeler-Dunn, who again practically has a free header into the back of the net. Not Barnsley, sorry, Reading at 6s and 7s at the back, and just a couple of minutes later, Barnsley are rewarded a penalty. It probably is a penalty in this day and age, but it's not the most stonewall one that you have ever seen, and Phillips converted emphatically into the back of the net. Reading did pull a goal back through Kayerewa. Apologies if I have pronounced that one wrong. Just 7 minutes after that one, with a well taken goal, to be fair, low driven into the bottom corner, but unfortunately for the Royals, they couldn't get another one and find an equaliser in the game. Looking at the stats from the match then, it looked like quite an even affair, but Barnsley did just slightly edge it in a few of the statistics and probably did deserve to win by just a single goal. But we know there's a lot of quality in that Barnsley squad. Reading still missing Paudie O'Connor at the back. I don't think he's played competitively yet for the Royals, and he's proven to be a big miss for them at this moment in time, because defensively they're just not organised whatsoever. In terms of Barnsley then, they have had a great start to the season. If they win their game in hand, they could potentially go go top of the table. 5 wins from their opening 7. It seems like they finally got their act together in this division. It's just 1 defeat as well in their last 5. They have been on a really good run and they've had a really good start to the season on the whole, and that is another good 3 points for them. In terms of Reading, still in the relegation zone, or maybe they've dropped back down into the relegation zone. Still just 1 win from their opening 7 matches. They've conceded 12 goals. It's far too many. You're not going to be any type of successful team with the amount of goals that Reading are conceding, and their poor start to the season certainly has continued in this game. Great for Barnsley though, who again continue their great start to the season. Burton 0, Lincoln 1 is the next match that we will talk about. The only goal of the game coming from a corner. Tom Bayliss with a right-footed in-swinger. Sonny Bradley with the header around 6 yards or so out from the goal line into the back of the net, and that was all she wrote. Despite Burton and Lincoln both having some decent half chances, Freddie Draper had a great opportunity in the second half where he hit the post. This game was only decided by that single set play, and maybe some question marks over Burton, but what I would also say about Lincoln on the other spectrum of that, they're probably going under the radar a little bit at this moment in time. Burton massively dominating the possession, having 16 shots but just 2 on target. That is simply not good enough, and it didn't really look like Burton had many clear-cut chances. There was a lot from the edge of the box and kind of pop shots, all that sort of stuff. They couldn't really break Lincoln down, and that comes from them being very well drilled defensively, and obviously they lost a couple of their key defenders in the summer, the likes of Sean Rowan, I believe, going to Huddersfield, the likes of Paddy O'Connor going to Reading, but they have, had a great start to the season, to be fair, have Lincoln. They probably are slightly gone under the radar. Just 1 defeat for them in their opening 8 matches. There's not many goals in their games, I wouldn't say, as we can see by this one, but they're just outside of the playoffs on goal difference at this moment in time. Lincoln, I feel like for the last couple of years, since maybe the COVID season, where I'm pretty sure they got to Wembley, I want to say, and lost against Blackpool in the playoff final. Since then, they've always been just outside the playoffs and not quite had enough to get in, but maybe this season could be theirs. As for Burton, they are in the relegation zone. Yes, they've got 1 in every case, but some cases 2 games in hand on a lot of team, but it's just 1 point picked up from the last 15 available. That is simply not good enough. They haven't won since the opening day, and I am starting to get very concerned about Burton, in all honesty. They can't have another great escape. We've seen it with many teams gone by over the last couple of seasons where they've just about managed to avoid relegation. Eventually, you will take the plunge, you will drop down into League 2. So something needs to change, and change for them quick, because they've only scored the 5 goals all campaign, and they've also conceded 10. It's all well and good not scoring many if you're defensively solid, like a Northampton, for example, but Burton, I'm very concerned about them, and their poor start to the season continues. Lincoln, though, their good start to the season also continues. It's been a bit of a running theme so far. Port Vale finally picked up their first win of the campaign, a 2-0 victory away at Exeter City, and dare I say it was undeserved. I think for a lot of games so far this season, Port Vale have come away from the game either losing or drawing where they should have been winning or drawing at the very minimum. Their performances have warranted more points, but looking at the highlights from this game, you would probably say Exeter were definitely the better side, created the better chances. Port Vale's, both of their goals really come from individual errors from Exeter City. The first one, they're trying to play it from the back, they just get it completely wrong, and Marawi Patton, a man who spent, I think, the second half of last season out on loan in the Scottish Championship, I believe scoring his first goal of the season for Port Vale. It wasn't a great finish, it was down the middle, to be fair, but they all count, and that is all that matters. And the second one is a throw-in in a very good position for Exeter City. They try to go backwards and they just give the ball away very cheaply. Patton with a great through ball, and Devante Cole still has a lot to do, but manages to finish into the bottom corner. He's a man who always scores goals at League 1 level, and he's already got off to a great start to life at Port Vale. A couple of the goals and assists as well. And Exeter, they created some really good chances in the game, but just could not quite break Port Vale down. And I think that's kind of been the opposite to what's happened to Port Vale so far this season. Normally they've played well and probably been the better side and deserve more out of it. This game was the complete opposite case. I think Exeter were the better team, but Port Vale have come away from the game with 3 points. That's obviously a long way to go for the Port Vale fans, so I'm sure they're delighted with the 3 points. As for Exeter, I'm not concerned about them based off of this result. You look at the stats from the game, they were comfortably the better side in the match, dominated pretty much every statistic. Port Vale scored with their only 2 shots on target in the match as well. I know Port Vale scoring very early will have influenced that, but you look at the stats, that is concerning, isn't it, for an away side over a full 46 game season. It's all right getting the odd smash and grab, but I am still a little bit concerned about Port Vale. In terms of the league table then, Exeter back-to-back defeats for them, but they've still had a relatively decent start to the season. I think they'll certainly be happy with a 16th place finish come the end of the campaign. Port Vale finally out of the relegation zone, and they've put a stop to their recent rot of just losing games. You know, it's very easy to get into a losing habit. It's much harder to get into a winning habit. Hopefully for them, they'll be hoping to kick on now, having obviously got their first win of the season. They were previously without a win in their last 7 matches, but it's been positive for Port Vale. You know, since Devante Cole's come in, I think they've started scoring more goals. They've got the first clean sheet of the season in this one. I think things are certainly starting to look up a little bit, whereas Exeter, maybe you're starting to look a little bit over your shoulder, although you are still 4 points above the drop, so who knows. Let me know your thoughts down below. Leyton Orient and Bolton Wanderers have finished in a 1-1 draw, and there was 2 very well taken goals, in all honesty, between the both sides. There was obviously different reasons as to why these are both very good goals. I think the opener for Orient is an outstanding pass originally from, I think it's Tom James, the number 2 for Leyton Orient. He must have come on as a substitute, but either way, it was an outstanding through ball. The ball's cut back and Simpson taps it into an empty net, but Kazia Dubere, I'm still not 100% sure on the pronunciation of his name, but goodness me, he's an absolutely outstanding footballer. Picks it up on the right attacking wing sort of position for Bolton, drives and drives, plays a 1-2 with Josh Sheehan, gets half the yard and just whips it in the top corner. To have the confidence and back your own ability to do that in the 94th minute when you're 1-0 down, he's a man for the big moments, and I think, I'm not sure about what Brighton see for him, you know, going forward, because I think it's clear to see he's far too good to be playing in League One. He's obviously more than got the ability to be playing in the Championship regularly, I do believe, but he's got to do that consistently now. Do it all the way up until January, and I guess you have to reassess there. Bolton will be hoping that he does very well up until November, then around December he goes a little bit quiet, and a few teams are taking him off the radar, and then he comes back to life again come February and lights it up for the rest of the campaign, because he is a very, very talented footballer. And looking at the stats from the game, Orient didn't really do much, in all honesty. I think, again, Bolton were a better side, but again, they have drawn 1-1. I think they've played 7 or 8 games so far this season, and 5 or 6 of them have finished in a 1-1 draw. It's been crazy what's been going on with Bolton so far this campaign, but going away to Leyton Orient and dominating possession says a lot about Stephen Schumacher's side. I think there's a lot of very good quality in there, but just so far they haven't quite been good enough in both boxes so far this season. 5 draws from their opening 8 matches, and I'm pretty sure they've all been 1 apiece. That is not good enough. Both of these teams, really, you'd expect to be in and around the top 6 come the end of the campaign. They've just not quite built that consistency so far. You look at Leyton Orient, just 2 wins in their last 5. It's just 1 win in the last 5 for Bolton Wanderers as well. But Bolton have only lost 1 game so far this campaign. They just can't quite win the football matches and get over the line. They're still only 4 points off the playoffs, both of these teams, so I'm not too concerned about them, in all honesty. It's probably a point to look back on come the end of the campaign, and both teams will go, yeah, that wasn't an awful 1-1 draw for us. But for Bolton, they need to stop the 1-1 draws going forward. Luton 2, Plymouth 3 has to be the most chaotic game of the weekend. I mean, where on earth do we even start with this? It feels like about half an hour ago since I watched the extended highlights, and Sorinola converted from Lawrence Talai's cross. A very well taken goal, to be fair. Great cross into the box from Talai and a brilliant diving header from Sorinola. Just 5 minutes later, though, Luton Town would be awarded a penalty, and I think it's incredibly harsh, if I'm being honest with you. Ball is up in the box. It's one to challenge. Brendan Weirdo goes up to challenge. Yeah, he's a bit forceful. He's a bit aggressive, but it's football, it's a contact sport. Either way, the referee gives a spot kick and a yellow card to Weirdo, and Jerry Yates then rolls the ball down the middle. Just before half-time, though, Bradley Ibrahim would pop up with another goal, a very well-taken goal, to be fair, wraps it into the bottom corner, and that would not be the end of his goal scoring. But just 4 minutes into the second half, Luton are awarded yet another penalty, and again, I'm a bit... Is that a penalty? I'm a little bit on the fence with that one as well. Cross comes into the box, and yes, I think it was Sorinola, the scorer of the first goal, who's holding the Luton man, but the Luton man jumps to try and head the cross into the back of the net, and I think the referee thinks then that Sorinola has dragged him to the floor. I think it's an incredibly harsh penalty decision, in all honesty, and again, Naki Wells then whips it into the bottom corner. Not even 30 seconds later, Joe Edwards has then received his marching orders for a challenge. Now, on the kind of iFollow angle that you get on the YouTube highlights, it's impossible to tell really whether it's 1-footed, 2-footed, or he's won the ball, or he's got the man, or it's his follow through, or stood to show, and it's impossible to tell. But I did think it was very interesting how there was a Luton player who reacted, and he was very much like, very shocked that the referee had actually given a red card for that. So Luton and Plymouth fans, let me know your thoughts on all of these decisions, really. The 2 penalty decisions and the red card down in the comment section down below. But Bradley Ibrahim would, I would say, pop up with the winner, but it's one of the luckiest goals you ever see. There's a bit of a goal line scramble. Luton are trying to clear it, and eventually the Luton defender just smashes the ball into Ibrahim, hits him, and goes into the back of the net. It is the luckiest goal that you'll ever see, but Plymouth don't really win football matches away from home, and I think Luton recently, they've looked more as there's 11 players out there rather than a team, and that is a little bit of a problem, and that's how they looked when they came to Vale Parade, when Bradford City obviously played against them, and I thought by now they would have got their act together a little bit more. As for Plymouth, to have 2 penalty decisions potentially go against you, to have a red card decision potentially go against you as well, and still go away from home against arguably the pre-season title favourites and win, fair play to Plymouth Argyle. I mean, look at the stats. It was total domination by Luton Town. The underlying numbers would say stay positive at Luton fans, but again, you've had all that potential luck and fortune go your way, and you've still managed to find a way to lose the match. I feel like this is just one of them, really, for Luton. It was just one of those days where it was going to work for Plymouth, it wasn't going to work for Luton, and they've just got to try and move on and move past it as quick as possible. Luton down in 9th position at this moment in time, just 4 wins from their opening 7, still only 3 points off of the playoffs though. As for Plymouth, it's 3 wins in their last 4, it's back-to-back wins. They are now on a roll. They've started scoring goals. Who would have thought you bring in a striker as good as Lawrence Alai and you start scoring goals? Obviously Ibrahim's popped up with a couple in this one. They have still conceded 17 goals so far this season, which is comfortably the worst in the entire division. They need to stop conceding goals. Again, both of these ones they've conceded in this game are penalties. I feel like they've conceded a lot of penalties so far this season, and every time the keeper just seems to dive completely the wrong way. But 3 wins in the last 4 matches. Things are finally starting to look up for Plymouth. As for Luton, just 2 wins in their last 5, and they're, you know, sat outside the playoffs at this moment in time. Let me know your thoughts down below, as well as don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Mansfield and Stevenage played out a 1-1 draw, which is probably a fair result in all honesty. The scoring was opened in the second half by Charlie Good. I think it's Harvey White puts in a corner, and it's practically a free header for Charlie Good. Now I've listened to Nigel Clough's post-match interview, and he basically said there was a block in the penalty area which has allowed Good to have the free header. You know, we were told at the start of the season that referees will be clamping down on these sort of things, but again, the match official has missed that. But either way, still a very well-worked routine by Stevenage, and, you know, they obviously do deserve some credit for that. They had another corner just a couple of minutes later, which eventually was scrambled into the hands of Liam Roberts. He distributed early to Joe Gardner, who just ran and ran and ran, opened up his body and whipped it into the bottom corner, and after that the chances seemed to fall largely in Mansfield's way after a pretty dull and dire opening first 69 minutes, really. The game seemed to really liven up once the first goal eventually went in, and a very well taken goal from Gardner. But neither side could find a winner in the game. I can only assume that's maybe Nigel Clough who's been booked for that. Let me know down below, Stags fans, what is going on there. But looking at the stats from the game, then possession very even, which I'm a little bit surprised by. I thought Mansfield would have had more possession, but Stevenage slightly edged the other chances, you know, more XG, more shots on target, big chances, all that sort of stuff. But it was certainly Mansfield applying the late pressure in the game. But I feel like Stevenage, they're just, as everybody will tell you, very well drilled, they're very resolute, they're very strong in their. Mansfield, I think, have done well with quite a inexperienced team, I would say. You know, there's a fair few youngsters in there, or a lot of players who are not the most physically well built, I would say, as well, who have obviously come away from the game, and I think a point probably was a fair result on the balance of play. As for Stevenage, though, it has still been a great start to the season for them. I know it's only been 1 win in their last 3, but it's still only 1 point off top. They've got a game in hand on second place, Bradford as well, so Alex Ravel certainly deserves a lot of credit. As for Mansfield, their winless run is continuing. I think it's 5 games now in all competitions without a win, which is obviously not great for them, but it's still been a positive start to the season on the whole for the Stags. I think they'll be happy with the 13th place finish come the end of the season, so it's certainly not time to hit the panic buttons whatsoever, but I think it's a decent point really for both sides, I'd say. Peterborough United picked up their first victory of the season against Wycombe Wanderers. The scoring was opened by Matt Garbutt with an absolutely outstanding strike. Archie Collins on the halfway line clips a ball into midfield, and Garbutt has got the freedom really of London Road. He turns them from about 30 yards out, strikes it into the bottom corner. An absolutely outstanding finish, to be fair. And just 20 minutes after that, I'm pretty sure it was Brandon Kayler would cross from the right hand side. I think it's Harry Leonard who gets his head to it and forces Mickey Van Sass into an absolutely outstanding save, but he can only parry it into the path of Jimmy J Morgan, who rifles it into into the roof of the net. Unfortunately for the Posh, they couldn't quite keep a clean sheet in the game as a long throw would come into the box and Peterborough just failed to clear it really. Eventually it falls to Fred Onyedimya, who just drills it into the back of the net. And to be fair, Peterborough, they didn't just lie down there and roll over and let Wycombe just dominate the ball and possession and creating chance after chance. Yes, obviously Wycombe had their odd opportunity, but Peterborough was still going forward and they're still trying to score more goals, which is obviously good for them. They did pick up a few injuries in this game. It seems to just be continuing really for Peterborough, but great for them to finally pick up their first win of the campaign. It looked like quite an entertaining game, in all honesty. Wycombe had more of the ball, but Peterborough dominating a lot of the other stats, which this is what you'd expect a Peterborough side to be in League, which is exactly what you'd expect a Peterborough United side to be in League One. So hopefully for them, they can go on a bit of a run, create some momentum. They have recently changed to the 5-3-2 rather than the 4-2-3-1, so they've kind of sacked off all them gem wingers that they've got and gone and tried to be a little bit more defensively resolute. But this team certainly looks a lot more structured and a lot better man for man than the team that, for example, played against my team Bradford City a couple of weeks ago. But a very good win for Peterborough. In terms of Wycombe, and nothing's going to change for me until they sack Mike Dodds. He is absolutely nowhere near good enough. You just look at this team and the way they're playing, it's just not good enough at this moment in time. In terms of Peterborough, they are still bottom of the table, which goes to show how bad of a start that they have had already so far this campaign, but at least they're not the only team in the division to have not won a game. Them and Port Vale finally both winning on a game week 8. All the teams around them didn't win either as well, which is good news for them. As for Wycombe, yes, obviously they beat Mansfield the other week, but they've had an awful start to the campaign. 5 defeats in your opening 8 games for a team who finished in the playoffs last season. Awful for them. Great win for Peterborough, but they need to build on it now. They need to get some momentum going because recently I think they've lost to, yes, losing away at Huddersfield's not the end of the world, but getting battered away at Exeter, drawing your home games, it's just not been great really for Peterborough, so hopefully they can kick on now. As for Wycombe, like I said, nothing's changing until Mike Dodds is out the door for me. Stockport County 1, Cardiff City 1 is the next game that we will speak about. Again, just more frustration really for Stockport. They, looking from the highlights, were comfortably the better side and on another day could have won this game 5 or 6-0, but again they haven't. It's another game where they drop points in another match where they should have got more out of it. Their only goal of the game comes from a penalty. It's a bit hard to tell on the highlights angle because of how slow behind that the camera is, if it is a penalty or not, but the Cardiff City players seem to be complaining more about a potential foul in the build-up by Kyle Wootton rather than the actual decision, which was then very well converted by Ollie Norwood, and he gives a bit to the Cardiff goalkeeper. Obviously that did come back to bite him in the end, but the likes of Benoit Anderson, for example, he had 3 or 4 really good chances in the game, especially in the first half, and they're just not getting the rub of the green at this moment in time. Cardiff was certainly rolling the dice in the second half, but it would take until the 97th minute where Chris Willock would swing in a left-footed cross and Salic would find himself on the score sheet yet again with a free header. It's awful defending from Stockport County, in particular Brad Hills, who's just so weak in there and eventually loses his man. It's just absolutely awful. I think Corey Adai as well, he should potentially be coming out for that. For a man of his size, he needs to be much more commanding in them type of positions. But looking at the stats from the game, it was total domination by Stockport County. Cardiff barely had a sniff in the entire match, but that's been the story of Stockport's season so far this campaign. Total domination for at least 45 minutes. It looked like they continued it into the second half, but just not quite getting over the line, lacking that clinical edge in the final third and not being strong enough defensively as well. As for Cardiff, very much so a smash and grab, and we've seen that a couple of times away from home this season. The likes of this game, the likes of Port Vale away, for example, where they've been lucky to come away from the game with 3 points, but I certainly think at home they will be very strong. But looking at the league table, then it's still been a great start to the season for Cardiff. They're top of the table with a game in hand on a lot of teams as well. They have now conceded a goal. They haven't conceded a goal from open play, have they? Wow, that's very concerning. Their only 2 goals they've conceded this season have both been from penalties, which doesn't bode well considering we go away to Cardiff this Saturday, but I'm still fully behind Graham Alexander and his side, and I'm confident we'll go there and at least give it something. As for Stockport, just 1 win in their last 5. There's too much red and yellow in here for a team who should be 5 points clear already at the top of the table based on certain performances, but it's just not been consistent enough for them. They've conceded far too many goals. They've conceded 12. That is the most amount in the top 13 teams in the division. That is absolutely awful. They've conceded more than Bradford, and it feels like we always concede at least one a game. But good for Cardiff to go away and snatch a point so late on. They're still yet to concede from open play. I'm very nervous about going there on Saturday, first versus second, but Stockport, they need to put their ideas up before this gap just gets too big for them. Doncaster Rovers were battered 3-0 away at Wigan Athletic, and Donny's recent very good run has come to an end. The scoring was opened by former Bantam Dara Costello on 11 minutes. Cross comes in from the Wigan left-hand side, and Timothy Lota-Tyler again just completely spills it. Awful goalkeeping, and Dara Costello is first to pounce to tap into the back of the net. Then 3 minutes later, Wigan have a corner, comes into the box, and Lota-Tyler again just punches it straight to Matt Smith. He's then out of position. He sits down, a Doncaster player, I'm not 100% sure it was, but it's great play to keep your composure like that, and picks his spot and practically passes it into the back of the net. And then it was made 3 just 5 minutes into the second half. Fraser Murray again with a goal contribution. He cuts in on his left foot, shoots, and you know, it's a decent strike to be fair, but again Lota-Tyler gets a hand to him and he just goes through him. It's awful goalkeeping. He made a big mistake against Bradford last week and it didn't cost them in that one, but he's practically at fault for all 3 of the goals in this one. Grant McCann's side just completely at 4s and 5s really, not even 6s and 7s. Wigan thoroughly deserved the 3 points in this game. Despite Doncaster dominating possession, didn't really create much. They hit the post with a cross in the second half, but that was about it in all honesty. Wigan thoroughly deserved all 3 points, and Doncaster will just be hoping that it was a little bit of an off day, but no chicken dances for them this week whatsoever. Did Jordan Gibson play in this game? Looking at the highlights, I couldn't tell you if he did or not. Yeah, Jordan Gibson did play. He was hooked after 59 minutes. So no chicken dances for him this week, but Doncaster's still 5th in the table. A couple of defeats for them so far this campaign, but still only 1 point off of top, having played a game more than majority of teams. As for Wigan, they've gone under the radar a little bit like Lincoln City very recently. I know there's a bit of a gap points-wise between them and Lincoln. They are 3 points off the playoffs at this moment in time, but they're very strong at home at Wigan. Away from home, a couple of question marks there, but at home they've got some good results so far this campaign. This just another one to add to their collection. I think they could cook up something pretty solid this season under Ryan Lowe. And to be fair, they're doing all this without Christian Sadie as well, which is very important for them. Costello on the score sheet, Mullin recently scoring as well. It's positive signs for Wigan, who massively struggled for goals last campaign. Northampton Town continued their very good recent run as they beat Blackpool 1-0 at home. The only goal of the game being scored by Cameron McGee. It was a pretty scrappy goal in all honesty, but some nice close control, and eventually he pokes it into the bottom corner with just 8 minutes left on the clock. But both teams had some decent chances. You know, Northampton could have had a couple of goals in the first half. There were some decent chances for both sides really in the second half as well. That dive from Josh Bowler on 10 minutes was absolutely awful, but another big win for Northampton. Blackpool, their awful start to the season, it does continue. Despite being the better side in a fair few of the stats, the only one that really matters is the scoreline, and another great win really for the Cobblers. You look at the quality in both of these teams and the money that's been spent, for example, in the Blackpool team compared it to Northampton, but again, it's not necessarily about how much you're getting paid or how much money you've spent on your squad. It's about that gritted togetherness that you've got. And Northampton at home recently have certainly been very hard to beat. They're up to 15th in the table. It's 3 straight wins on the bounce for the Cobblers. They are absolutely flying at this moment in time. It's 3 clean sheets on the bounce as well. Just 4 goals scored in their last 3 matches, but they're not conceding, and that is very important. As for Blackpool, second bottom in the table, just 1 win from their opening 7. They've conceded 14 goals so far this season. Already 1 point from safety with a far inferior goal difference. Just 1 point picked up out of their last at 12 available. It has been awful really recently for Blackpool. We've saved the other kickoffs until the end, but this one for Northampton is another big win for them, and they are now 5 points above the drop zone with a game in hand on a fair few teams as well. I dare say it, the Cobblers are flying at the moment. And finally then, I guess we're going to have to talk about Bradford City 3, Huddersfield Town 1. West Yorkshire is ours. I've been told for weeks in the comments that by a number of different dog botherers fans telling me that they can't wait for the 13th of September where the chickens are going to get pecked, all this sort of stuff. It was total domination really by Bradford City. Yes, the first 15-20 minutes Huddersfield were okay. They were creating some decent half chances. They hit the crossbar through Joe Taylor. Ryan Ledson put a shot just wide of Sam Walker's far post, but after that, after the opening goal, it was pretty much all Bradford City. The first one is absolutely outstanding football. I think it's our highest successful pass goal that's obviously ended in a goal. That's normally, what a goal is useful for. since 2019-20 season. It was absolutely outstanding football, and any person who's still claiming that Graham Alexander's football is hard to watch and it's hoofball, it's turgid to watch, they're just completely wrong, because that was outstanding football. If you've not already seen it, go and watch that first goal. It's absolutely brilliant football, capped off by boyhood Bradford City fan Bobby Poynton tapping it into the back of the net. We were forced into an injury change with Alex Patterson going off. It got quite a nasty whack to the face, to be fair, from Josh Nerfield's clearance, really, and hopefully that is nothing too serious. But boyhood Bradford City fan Bobby Poynton would be on hand to make it 2 just before half time. We work a long throw short. Eventually it's crossed in by Aidan Baldwin, flicked on by Anthony Sarcevic, and Bobby Poynton is there at the back post. He could have potentially come off, missed the ball completely and been taken out by 2 of the Huddersfield defenders, but no, he put himself on the line for it, found the back of the net with a very good finish, and then it is literally pretty much straight from kickoff. Will Swan's heavily involved in it. He eventually finds Anthony Sarcevic, waits for the overlap of Josh Nerfield. His cross comes short, is potentially stabbed home by Bobby Poynton. He's certainly claiming it. He's taken the match ball home from the game, and he has tapped it into the back of the net. I know it obviously still has now gone down as a Nerfield goal. We'll obviously find out probably in the next few days who that goal will officially be credited to, but I mean, you can see here in the thumbnail at Poynton, he's very happy with the 3 points. Yeah, they pull a goal back from a set piece. Pretty just unfortunate the way that it ends up in the back of the net, but well taken for Huddersfield, who were awful. Like I say, first 15-20 minutes or so, and about 5 or 10 minutes after their goal, they were okay when there was nothing really to play for, especially in that last 10-15 minutes when the game was pretty much done. It's all well and good, turning things on then where we're going a bit more defensive, bringing on more defensive minded players, but they were really, really poor. They just didn't look up for the fight. And again, I mentioned it about Luton, where it was 11 players on the pitch versus a team. Togetherness is certainly what Bradford City have built under Graham Alexander, and it's taken time to do that. It's not just happened overnight, but we were absolutely outstanding, and I am delighted not only with the 3 points, but to be a potential promotion rival, although the gap between ourselves and Huddersfield now is gigantic. Make sure you don't fall in it while you're typing your comments away in the comments down below. But to beat your West Yorkshire rivals for the first time that we've played them in the league in this fixture since 2006, where I was 2 years old, it is absolutely fantastic. And a word on the amount of yellow cards that Huddersfield were picking up as well. They were so dirty, especially in the midfield. They just could not get anywhere near us, and I think on another day they could have, maybe seen red, although the referee for both teams, I must say, was absolutely awful. He was so soft, pathetic, weak. But again, the opposition have had more possession. Huddersfield were playing out from the back sort of side, and look at the stats. Total domination by Bradford City. If you don't want to be beaten by Bradford City, don't play out from the back. Our whole game is pressing, high intensity football, and teams are still trying to play out from the back against us, but we were absolutely outstanding. So many players deserve so much credit. The likes of Nerfield and Sarcevic, for example, recently I've been quite critical of them, but they were brilliant in this game. You look at our back 3, it's very makeshift compared to where we were at the start of the season, with no Curtis Till, no Joe Wright. Baldwin was outstanding. He plays a big part in our first goal as well with a brilliant crossfield switch. He went off with an injury, so hopefully that's nothing too serious. Torre filling in at centre-half, despite us having 8 senior centre-halves on the books. Tyreek Wright at wing-back was outstanding. Probably his best game ever in a Bradford City shirt, playing out of position. Will Swan great up front as well. Poynton, obviously, the magic man, Power and Patterson, even Tommy Lee when he came on, great in the midfield. Sam Walker's rating's only so poor because he had naught to do in the game. Huddersfield created nothing. They were awful, pretty much all over the park. That low, goodness me, he looked like he'd won a competition. He was garbage. Couldn't pass, couldn't tackle, couldn't head, couldn't do anything. He was awful. He was certainly our press trigger in that game. Going forward, they were terrible. Jake Paulson up front for them was awful. Why is Alfie May not starting games? They were just absolutely garbage. And I'm not just saying that to try and get some rattles in the comments, because you've seen it from a lot of Huddersfield fans. They just didn't look up for it. They did not look up for it whatsoever. They were very scared. You could tell by playing in such a big atmosphere, playing in front of a big crowd, because Huddersfield only get about 6,000 at home. We might get a nibble on 1 or 2 of them in the comment section down below. But up to second in the table, I couldn't have asked for a much better start to the campaign. The perfect way to bounce back after a terrible performance away at Doncaster. We go away to Cardiff on Saturday, then it's away to Newcastle in the Cup. But these are games where we're going to relish that challenge under Graham Alexander. We're not going to be scared and carry away. Cardiff haven't conceded from open play so far this season. I can bet you a bottom dollar will score on Saturday. Huddersfield all the way down in 6th in the table. You might might struggle trying to see them because you've got to scroll so far down to actually see Huddersfield in the table. It's 2 defeats in their last 3 for them, 11 goals conceded. Lee Grant is not a particularly great manager, I don't think. Defensively, they are absolutely awful. Yes, they score a decent amount of goals with 15, but you can't be conceding 11 goals. That is the most out of any team in the top 9. That is absolutely tragic. And to say the amount of money that they've spent on this squad, I'm pretty sure their entire defence is very recently acquired. I know Sorensen came in from Lincoln, but their other 3 are certainly very recently acquired in the summer transfer window just gone by, and they were so poor defensively, even in the midfield, just not combative enough. I don't know why Will Alves, for example, isn't starting these sort of games, because he looked pretty decent on off the bench. But again, Bradford City are a team with togetherness. Huddersfield Town are 11 players who don't look like they've played together whatsoever. Brilliant win for us, absolutely fantastic. But anyway, I'm going to leave it there then for today's video. If you have enjoyed, please make sure to drop a like on there for me and subscribe to the channel as well if you are new. Can we try and hit 140 likes as I mentioned at the start of today's video? And don't forget to get your thoughts in down in the comment section down below on how your team got on over the weekend. Thank you all so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you very soon for another one.